Imagine for a moment that someone you trust, someone who should love you, starts acting like they've made a pact with something darker than you can name, not because they wear black or speak in riddles, but because their charm begins to rot, their smile feels like a mask, and their words twist your own mind against you. Have you ever wondered what it looks like when a narcissist finally surrenders to something far more sinister than selfishness? When their manipulation isn't just about control anymore, but destruction? This isn't about red flags, it's about blood-red warnings carved into the soul. And I promise, by the time we hit the third sign, you won't just recognize the danger, you'll feel it crawl up your spine. But before we go further, ask yourself, if the devil applied for a job, would he come in a suit or slide into your DMs with validation and charm? Buckle up, because we're not just exposing toxic traits, we're about to rip the mask off something far more terrifying. There's a moment in every interaction with a narcissist when something shifts. At first, it's subtle, a look, a tone, a half smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. They used to crave control like a child craves attention. They wanted to be the center of every conversation, the decision maker in every scenario, the architect of every emotional outcome. That was the old phase, the illusion of power masked by charm, persuasion, and carefully calculated guilt. But then, something changes. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, their need for control turns into something much more dangerous, a hunger for chaos. Control by nature implies structure. Even in its most toxic forms, it's about order, twisted, self-serving order, but order nonetheless. When a narcissist seeks control, they still want predictability. They want outcomes that serve them, responses that flatter them, and environments they can manage to maintain their image. But when control no longer satisfies, when domination becomes too familiar, they move into a darker territory. They begin to stir the waters not for power, but for destruction. This is the terrifying sign that they've crossed a line. They're no longer satisfied being gods of their own kingdoms. Now they want to watch the world burn, especially yours. You start to notice patterns that don't make sense. Arguments erupt over nothing, not because they're losing control, but because they want the explosion. They enjoy the confusion on your face when you're blamed for things you never did. They savor your frustration when you can't figure out what you've done wrong. They create emotional traps with no exits just to see you squirm. It's not about outcomes anymore. It's about reactions. And the more extreme your reaction, the more alive they feel. They're no longer the puppeteer. Now they're the storm. This kind of chaos isn't random. It's deliberate. It's the cold calculation of someone who has realized that pain creates more power than praise ever could. A narcissist who has descended into this phase doesn't just want your attention. They want your confusion, your fear, your helplessness. They don't just move the goalposts. They burn the entire field, then hand you a water hose with no pressure. It's psychological warfare, and they know exactly what they're doing. They manufacture emotional turbulence the way an artist paints, with precision, passion, and a deep desire to leave a permanent impression. You may find yourself waking up with anxiety, walking on eggshells, constantly second-guessing your own memory. That's not an accident. They thrive on your emotional disorientation. If they can keep you in a state of reactive panic, you'll never have the clarity to see them for what they become. Chaos becomes their cloak. They create so much noise around them that no one notices the real horror. They no longer care who gets hurt as long as they feel powerful in the wreckage. They may accuse you of instability while secretly fueling it. They'll provoke you, then sit back in cold amusement as you try to defend your sanity. Even their moments of calm become suspicious. They may suddenly apologize, offer a gift, or share a vulnerable story, not to reconnect, but to reset the game. They use peace as bait, but just when you begin to relax, they strike again. That's the twisted rhythm they orchestrate, predictable chaos. You never know what version of them you're going to get, and that's the point. They want you off balance. They want your nervous system permanently on high alert. They want to be the architect of your emotional collapse. There's also a spiritual element to this transformation, whether you're religious or not. A narcissist who seeks chaos isn't just playing psychological games. They've started to take pleasure in suffering. That's when it becomes evil, not just toxic, not just harmful. evil. They take your tears as trophies, your silence as surrender, your breakdowns as badges of their superiority. They become intoxicated with their ability to shatter trust, to warp reality, to twist love into something unrecognizable. They believe themselves untouchable, beyond consequence, immune to empathy. They aren't trying to maintain relationships anymore, they're trying to own the ruins. Sometimes they'll even sabotage their own lives just to drag others down with them. It's not about winning anymore. It's about making sure no one else does either. That's how far they've gone. That's how deep the darkness reaches. Control has a limit, but chaos is infinite. And once they taste that power, once they realize that confusion can be more effective than charisma, they don't turn back. When a narcissist begins their descent into something darker, the first thing that vanishes is not their charm or intelligence, it's their empathy. But it doesn't just fade quietly into the background like a dimming light. It's ripped out, destroyed, eradicated from the emotional landscape like it was never there to begin with. There's no suppression, no moment of hesitation, no flicker of remorse. What's left is a hollow shell, a person who can mimic care, speak the language of compassion, wear the mask of concern, but feels absolutely nothing behind the eyes. That's what makes it so terrifying. You're speaking to someone who knows exactly how to act human, but has lost all connection to what it means to be one. In the beginning, they may have shown flashes of empathy, or at least something that looked like it. Maybe they held your hand when you cried, looked into your eyes with just enough intensity to make you believe they understood. But those moments were performance, not presence. The truth is, narcissists often fake empathy because it serves them. It allows them access to your vulnerabilities, it buys them loyalty, it sets the stage for emotional control. But when the mask begins to slip and their darker nature takes over, that imitation is no longer necessary. They don't need to pretend anymore because they're no longer interested in playing the game of connection. They've decided that empathy is weakness, and weakness is for fools. This annihilation doesn't just happen overnight. It's a slow corrosion of humanity, a steady rewiring of the brain where compassion is replaced with calculation. You may notice it in how they respond to pain, not with concern, but with apathy, or worse, enjoyment. Someone falls, someone suffers, someone breaks, and instead of reacting like a decent person, they either shrug or smirk. They might even say something twisted, like they had it coming, or that's what happens when you're weak. They rationalize cruelty with cold logic, dismissing the emotions of others as irrelevant noise. Over time, they begin to see suffering not as a human experience, but as an opportunity. If someone else is hurting, that's a chance for them to rise, to dominate, to assert superiority. It's not just strangers who feel the impact of this emptiness. The people closest to them, partners, friends, even their own children, become objects, props in their self-centered theater. Your tears don't move them. Your fears don't concern them. Your dreams don't matter unless they benefit. They might say they care, but their actions always betray the truth. They'll forget your birthday, ignore your needs, invalidate your emotions, and when you call them out, they'll twist the narrative so thoroughly that you end up apologizing for expecting anything in the first place. That's not a lack of empathy. That's the weaponization of its absence. Perhaps the most chilling part of this annihilation is how easily they camouflage it. Because they've studied human emotion so closely, they know how to fake it when necessary. They might cry at a funeral, not because they're mourning, but because they want to be seen as someone who mourns. They'll donate to a cause if cameras are watching. They'll say the right things to avoid being exposed. But behind closed doors, their true self emerges. Cold, unmoved, detached. They watch people suffer and feel nothing. Or worse, they feel satisfied. Because empathy doesn't just disappear. It gets replaced by something else, contempt. Contempt is their new emotional language. They see emotional expression as a weakness to exploit. If you're vulnerable, they'll poke until you bleed. If you're strong, they'll find a way to break you down. They can't stand to see someone else at peace, because peace reminds them of what they've lost. They view kindness as manipulation, love as control, vulnerability as a trap. Everything is interpreted through a lens of self-preservation and superiority. In their mind, they are above emotion, above connection, above the foolish need to care. They become judge, jury, and executioner of everyone's emotional worth, based solely on how useful you are in the moment. Over time, this absence of empathy becomes their identity. They embrace it, even flaunt it. They may joke about being heartless, laugh at the idea of catching feelings, or mock those who express emotional depth. It's not just a defense mechanism, it's a declaration of who they've become. Someone who no longer relates to others as people, but as problems to be solved or pieces to be moved. They are numb, but not passive. Their emotional void gives them freedom to do what others would never consider. They can lie without flinching, betray without guilt, destroy without hesitation. Because in their world, no one else truly matters. There's a point in every toxic relationship when the mask slips, and what you see underneath isn't just manipulation or control, it's enjoyment. A narcissist who has surrendered to their darker impulses doesn't simply want obedience anymore. Submission becomes boring to them, too predictable. They want something deeper, something that feeds their ego on a more primal level. That's when they begin to crave your suffering, not as a consequence of their actions, but as the reward. Your pain becomes their validation. Your broken spirit becomes proof of their power. It's not enough that you do what they say. They need to know they can crush what makes you you and still have you stay. This kind of narcissist doesn't settle for control over your actions. They want authority over your inner world. They want to own your self-worth, your confidence, your happiness. And so they target it slowly and systematically. They'll make you doubt your talents, question your memories, and second-guess your instincts. If you smile, they'll find a way to wipe it off your face. If you achieve something, they'll find a flaw in it. If you're excited about your day, they'll inject just enough poison to kill the joy before it blooms. And they'll do it with a smirk, with a shrug, or even with a sweet voice that masks a dagger. At first, you might not realize what's happening. The jabs are small, almost imperceptible. But over time, you notice the pattern. The better you feel, the worse they act. Your light threatens them. Your independence unsettles them. And so, rather than confront their own insecurities, they chip away at yours. This isn't an accident. It's intentional. It's not a lack of self-awareness. It's a calculated campaign. They feed off the decay of your spirit because it reassures them that they still hold power. Watching you suffer gives them a twisted sense of superiority. They feel bigger when you feel small. You'll start to recognize a shift in their reactions. Where most people show concern when you're upset, the narcissist looks almost satisfied. When tears stream down your face, they might lean in, not to comfort you, but to study you, like a scientist observing a reaction they caused. They'll say things like, "See what you made me do?" or "You're too sensitive," or "This is why no one else would ever put up with you." These aren't just insults, they're engineered blows to the soul. And if you break down, if you lose control, if you lash out or collapse in exhaustion, they win. Because it proves to them that they're not just important in your life, they define it. This goes beyond sadism. It's deeper than just enjoying someone else's pain. It's about domination through psychological erosion. A narcissist in this state wants to become your god. They want you to see them as the source of both your joy and your suffering until you no longer know where you end and they begin. If they can make you believe that your misery is your own fault, or better yet, that it's deserved, they gain even more control. Your suffering becomes the currency of their self-worth. What makes it more dangerous is how they disguise it. They don't always scream or threaten. Sometimes they play the victim. They'll twist your reaction to their cruelty into proof that you're the problem. If you cry, you're being dramatic. If you defend yourself, you're being aggressive. If you ask for space, you're abandoning them. They turn your pain into evidence of their own righteousness, and in doing so, they give themselves permission to continue hurting you. And somehow you begin to feel guilty for bleeding. But there's another layer to this, one that makes the situation even more chilling. The narcissist not only enjoys your suffering, they become addicted to it. Like any drug, the initial hit of power feels euphoric. But as time goes on, they need more. They need louder cries, deeper wounds, greater submission. The subtle digs stop working, so they escalate. What once was emotional sabotage turns into full-scale psychological warfare. And in the most extreme cases, they'll sabotage your life just to watch you scramble. They'll isolate you, turn friends against you, ruin opportunities, just to see how far you'll fall. And all the while, they watch, cold, detached, pleased, because to them, your suffering isn't collateral damage, it's the main event. They feed on it. It makes them feel alive, important, powerful. And once they discover this twisted pleasure, they don't let it go. They justify it, rationalize it, normalize it. They'll tell themselves you deserve it, that you're weak, that they're just being honest. But the truth is far darker. They have become something else, something that no longer resembles the person you once knew, not just controlling, not just toxic, but consumed by a pleasure that can only be satisfied through your pain. When a narcissist steps beyond manipulation into the realm of delusion, something profoundly disturbing happens. They no longer tell lies just to get away with something. They tell lies because they believe they are the truth. Their fabrications don't remain private thoughts or occasional defenses. They become the blueprint for reality itself, one that they demand everyone around them to accept, uphold, and conform to. It's no longer about deceiving you. It's about replacing your perception with theirs, rewriting your memories, reshaping your identity, and forcing you to question the very ground beneath your feet. At first, it feels like minor contradictions. They'll say, "That's not what I said," even though you remember their words with perfect clarity. They'll deny something you both experienced or claim they said something you know they didn't. These aren't simple misunderstandings or faulty memories. They're deliberate distortions. But they're delivered with such conviction, such icy calm that you begin to second-guess yourself. That hesitation is exactly what they're after. If they can get you to doubt your own mind, they can begin to install a new version of events, one that serves their ego, their image, their control. This is where their lies shift from manipulation into domination. Because once you begin to adapt your behavior to avoid conflict, once you start walking on eggshells to protect their illusion, you're not just responding to a lie, you're living inside it. You begin censoring yourself, changing how you speak, revising your own memories to fit their narrative. You tell yourself, "Maybe I did misunderstand," or "It's not worth arguing," or "They probably didn't mean it that way." Slowly, imperceptibly, you surrender your reality, and once you do, they own you. They lie about who you are. They tell you you're overreacting, too sensitive, not smart enough, not capable. They paint you as unstable, selfish, or even abusive, while they play the misunderstood hero. And the terrifying part? They'll tell those lies to others too. They'll go to your friends, your family, your coworkers, and spread a carefully constructed version of reality where they are the victim and you are the cause of all the chaos. If anyone believes them, the lie gains power. It becomes a shared illusion, one that isolates you even further. You're no longer just questioning yourself, you're being questioned by others. In their world, facts don't matter. Evidence can be dismissed, emotions can be mocked. Their narrative is the only one that counts, and any attempt to challenge it is met with rage, gaslighting, or calculated coldness. If you bring proof, they'll claim you're twisting it. If you quote their words back to them, they'll say you misunderstood. If you catch them contradicting themselves, they'll accuse you of manipulation. It's a psychological labyrinth with no exit because the rules keep changing based on their needs in the moment. This ability to rewrite reality isn't just pathological, it's weaponized. They use it to erase accountability, to silence dissent, and to maintain dominance. If they lie about an argument, it's to make you look like the aggressor. If they lie about the past, it's to cast themselves as the savior. If they lie about your feelings, it's to invalidate your pain and center their own experience. Every lie is designed to reinforce their supremacy and dismantle your confidence. The longer you stay, the more distorted your own sense of truth becomes. Over time, something inside you starts to shrink. You stop speaking up because what's the point? You stop trusting your instincts because they're always wrong. You stop telling your story because no one seems to believe it anyway. And in this silence, the narcissist's false reality grows stronger. They now live in a world where they are always right, always justified, always the victim or the hero, but never the villain. And they demand that everyone else live there too. Not just visit, not just tolerate, but fully participate in the illusion. Even when caught red-handed, they'll double down. They'll escalate the lie instead of correcting it. They'll cry, rage, threaten, or retreat into icy silence, whatever it takes to keep control of the story. And if you push too hard, if you try too hard to make the truth visible, they'll punish you. Not just emotionally, but socially. They'll smear you, isolate you, discredit you. Because in their mind, exposing the lie is worse than telling it. Their identity is built on fiction, and truth is the greatest threat to that identity. Eventually, you realize this isn't just lying, it's a total replacement of reality. The narcissist isn't trying to get away with something, they're trying to reshape your world. And if you don't submit, you become the enemy of their illusion. The lie isn't just a statement, it's a system, one they expect you to live in, breathe in, and obey without resistance.